Thank you for joining us, taking time from your busy schedule of Netflix and chill. I'm your moderator, of course, Katherine Diaz-Callaway. I graduated from UConn in 2009 with a double bachelor's degree of the arts. And I currently work at the U.S. State Department in D.C. And I've been a federal service employee since 2009, since graduating from UConn. So welcome. Next, let's go with Jayhon. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Jay. Can everybody hear me? I'm not on mute all as well. Okay. My name is Jayhon Ghassem-Zadeh. I graduated from UConn undergrad in 2013 with a bachelor's in political science and public policy. And then I went on to graduate from the public policy school with my master's in public administration and public financial management in 2015. I presently work at Booz Hamilton, where I serve a whole suite of federal clients, including the United States Postal Service, law enforcement, military installations, so on and so forth. Very proud to be here with you all. I wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge kind of what was happening on campus with Pride Rock, and I'm really proud to see a lot of the UConn leaders stepping up to the plate and kind of answering that problem head on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Elizabeth?
Hi, y'all. Elizabeth Charash. I graduated in 2018 with a degree in history and minor in human rights. Also dabbled in some policy classes. I got a master's last year at Queen's University, Belfast. And I'm currently at the Brady campaign, which is a gun violence prevention organization in DC.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Raymond, Ray?
Good evening, everyone. Ray Gerte here. I graduated from the School of Engineering back in 2016 with a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. Ended up staying directly at UConn and doing my master's degree right after. Finished that up in 2018, and that's civil engineering as well with a concentration in transportation engineering. What brings me down to DC, I currently work for Noblis, government contracting, similar to what Jay does, but I actually support the US DOT. And so I'm on site at the Joint Program Office working with intelligent transportation systems currently.
Very interesting. Katherine Bradbury?
Hi, I'm Katherine Bradbury. I graduated from UConn in 2011 with degrees in political science and English and a minor in human rights. And what brought me down to DC was an internship at the White House in 2014, and stuck around, started working on the Hill, and then I'm currently at the Treasury Department. Back to you, Kat.
Thank you. Am I missing anyone? Sorry, I'm scrolling through.
I think we're good.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so I guess we can start with the first question that we have. What brought you to your city? Where do you currently reside? Jay, if you want to start.
Sure. So funny enough, UConn and Washington, D.C. have a very interesting connection in my heart, where I actually came down for a student summit on behalf of the University of Connecticut in D.C., and I had never been to DC before college. And so I came down and I was just like in awe of everything that I saw, from the monuments to the allure of working in government and all the smart people, and everyone seemed to be busy. And so it was about 11 years ago at this point where I had first come on a field trip to DC. And I stood outside the Booz Allen Hamilton building with a friend who worked at Booz Allen Hamilton at the time. And I thought to myself, you know what? This is the kind of place I want to be in. This is the kind of organization in town I want to be at. And so I worked hard, and I guess steps led me to DC, and I absolutely love it here. I actually just bought a house, and I'm getting married soon. And so life is pretty great here in DC. Glad I followed my heart.
That sounds great. I'm glad they brainwashed you pretty early. Elizabeth, would you like to?
Yeah, so I started coming to DC when I was a young kid on family vacations, and a young love of politics, or a love for politics from a young age really incentivized me to come here. And I've been very active in gun violence prevention work since I was a teenager. Really only wanted to work for Brady when I graduated, and was very lucky to begin working for them when I did. And so again, glad to be here and start my life here as well.
Great. I'm glad you got your dream job. Ray?
I think my story in getting down to DC here, very UConn related as well. Every year when I started grad school and decided to focus on transportation engineering, every year here in DC in January, we have the Transportation Research Board annual meeting. Brings together, I think, this year it'll be a little different because it's virtual, but the last couple of years, maybe 30,000 plus individuals from around the globe come to DC. It's just a great meeting of the minds for transportation professionals. And I was down here actually presenting some of my grad school research work, Uber and Lyft analyses in New York City, and it brought me in contact with some Noblis folks, and the networking kind of honeymoon began, and then I ended up down here once I finished my degree in 2018. So very much fell in love with the city, very friendly transportation city, which is something near and dear to my heart. So yeah, it was a match made in heaven.
Well, I wouldn't mislead people. I would, let them know this is one of the worst traffic places in the world, but.
Traffic and transportation shouldn't be always confused.
Okay. Thank you for schooling me.
The city is full of so many, and I think the traffic sometimes pushes people. It's definitely an issue, but it'll push you to do things you weren't always used to doing if, coming from Connecticut, different places where driving is the norm. So.
Right. Katherine?
Sure. So I guess I jumped the gun a bit, but I would say the reason I wanted to come to DC was after UConn, I spent a couple years abroad, including in grad school, and I spent a lot of time studying and analyzing and critiquing the U.S. government's ability to uphold human rights and national security issues. And so I said, you can't really make a final decision on something until you've been there and seen it yourself. So that's how I ended up coming to DC to intern and work within the government to really get a stronger hold on some of those issues that make decisions within the public realm a little more difficult than some of the critiques that are doled out.
Very interesting, definitely. Well, I jumped the gun also a little bit, guys. I tend to do that. Got down here after studying political science and an individualized major in international security. Thought I could work in Connecticut. Crazy me, but I was born and raised there. But I also was in the U.S. Army back in the day. So I came down here, been working. I started at Fort Meade, so 30 minutes out of D.C. And now I'm in like I said, in the actual DC area. Lots of government jobs, not just in DC, outside of DC also. Let's go to the second portion then. What are some good ways to continue being part of the UConn alumni community besides social media? Ray, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think this is actually uniquely suited to me because I joined this panel actually because Jay. We were great friends at UConn. We worked together at UConn. And, he pulled me back into the UConn alumni group down here. I came down, I was trying to get myself situated, didn't really know, trying to meet new people. And Jay helped me kind of reel back in to the UConn community, which was really nice. And just helped me fold back in. So one of the big things outside of your social media and like the standard stuff, definitely reach out to your friends and the folks friends, because it can help you kind of grow your network and really stay connected, especially with the university through panels like this, in ways you wouldn't otherwise find.
Right. I can see that bromance is real. It's very nice. So definitely reach back to those people. How about you, Elizabeth?
I just really got started with the alumni network by emailing UConn and seeing what opportunities were available down here. And I haven't been able to attend any in-person events yet, unfortunately, because I moved in October of last year and didn't catch the wave before COVID, but look forward to getting more involved with those once they are able to happen again.
Cool. God willing. Not too far in the future.
Very much so. Very much so. Miss human interaction.
Absolutely. Katherine?
Sure. I think one of the nice ways that DC has is a Connecticut State Society. And through that, they have a whole emailing list. And of course, they'll do more events when we're out of pandemic mode. But a couple of years ago, we did a softball tournament one day, which was really fun. And then they'll have happy hours. Sometimes they'll be able to organize events with the Connecticut congressional delegation. So that's a great list to sign up for.
Nice. Jay, any input?
Yeah, I guess the the opportunity starts now to be involved, right? So a lot of, rather than kind of planning on getting involved, right? Like let this be the beginning stage of, I'm sure through Lauren, there's a way where everybody who's attending this can reach out to at least one of us. Let that be your first action step today, is to reach out to one of us, maybe through experience of what we do for work, or maybe just you just naturally gravitate towards personalities. I know I'm a very eccentric personality, so the introverts, I feel you, I understand, but like reach out, right? Reach out and put some action to build that community, because as much as UConn gets out of it, you know, my friendship with Ray, and I would hope to continue my friendship.
Here we go again.
There you go. It really has made my DC experience a lot better. So we can build that right now. We can make this an action step. So
Cool,
And I do want to second that CT State Society. Very fun people, and a great way to just meet folks outside of UConn that are Connecticut people. Because you'll find once you get out of Connecticut people like each other, they stick together, and it's very friendly.
Okay, definitely. I do agree with that. Once you're down here, and I love how people in this area think they're Northerners. Big difference, just a little bit. I would say, when we do get together, it's a great experience. You could really meet people from all different sectors. It's not just govies and contractors. You can meet people from real estate or education, and link up, help them, help yourself. I know that I forgot the name of the gentleman, but there's somebody in our UConn alumni group in DC that is a real estate agent out of DuPont Circle, and he says he sells primarily to UConn alumni. So that's pretty big if he's making a good living. So, networking, hopefully we'll get these events going again. All right. So any tips on making friends, meeting, going to new neighborhoods, and new cities, any useful social media pages? Jay?
Useful social media pages. There are things like Popville, there are things like DCS to help you find events. I know there's apps like Meetup. I didn't really have much luck with Meetup. I just think it's a mindset, right? So 50% of it is being in a situation to meet new people, but the other 50% of it is not just being the person that oh, hey, let's go to the happy hour. It's, hey man, let's go to the park and throw frisbee, or hey, let's go kayaking on the don't pigeonhole yourself into one activity. My fiance came down here from Wisconsin, and she joined an art collaborative where she met tons of her friends, and those aren't her only friends, but just be open to new things that you don't think maybe you wouldn't have done on your own. Step out of your comfort zone. That's what I'll say.
Good idea. Good idea. Katherine, do you have a suggestion?
Sure. When we get back to having in-person events, I think all the think tanks in DC are usually hosting events, be it at lunch or after work hours, and often they'll speak for 30 to 60 minutes and have a Q&A, and then there'll be some type of drinks or reception afterwards, and that's a really great place to meet new people who might be interested in the same issues as you, and get to meet people that you might not have otherwise crossed paths with.
Good idea. All right, Elizabeth, would you like to add something before we move on?
Oh, sure. I think just kind of off of that, doing what makes you most excited. So if it is going to that talk that Katherine talked about, or going kayaking like Jay said, I love spin, and I've met a lot of really good friends through spin classes, because that's something that I'm passionate about outside of the work that I do. But really doing what makes you most excited and what you enjoy, in addition to the work things, is really good.
And something I can add to, just DC Fray is kind of like a sports meetup type of a group. So I actually played before pre-COVID times, beach volleyball, which was really fun. Just kind of signed up after work and got out there and played, met a bunch of people that also like to play beach volleyball. So just grow your friend group, expand, and then it's folks you meet up with every week, so the same faces, and you kind of just grow your whole circle anyway.
Good. All right. Yeah, there's definitely lots of groups out here, not only in DC, but in the suburbs of Maryland or Virginia, where there's softball or dodgeball groups, and it's all adults. And then, you always go to a pub after, and you can, socialize with people in your group, other teams, or just meet people at the bar. I mean, just never know. All right, so moving on, going on to finding and interviewing for new jobs. That's definitely obviously a big portion of why people are tuning in tonight or gonna listen to this later. I can say from personal experience, I got my job through usajobs.gov. I don't know if you all heard of it. It's basically a great place to find federal jobs through basically most federal employments. I applied, and that's where I am now in every sequential job after that, except for when I got offered a job at Trump's White House, which I said no to. But but everything else has been on USA Jobs. There's definitely a way, I would say, for writing your resume, depending on the job you apply for. Different agencies, if you're in the private sector, they want to see slightly variations to a resume. We could touch upon that with someone else. How about Jay, your experience?
Sure. So I transitioned from owning my own business to rolling my firm with a different firm, and so there was just kind of some like personal connection there. I think for your average job stuff, do just about whatever you possibly can to stick out. I know that's like very like cliche kind of advice, but I would definitely do research on different formats of resumes, make sure it's clear to the point. I think the biggest thing really is I think the social element and the social element and the professional element go very hand in hand, because you have folks who work in what's called the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And, I got my job at Booz because of a friend connection and a very strong reference. So being social, putting yourself out there, be willing to meet folks, and just follow your intuition, I guess, is what I would probably say.
Katherine?
Sure. So after my 5-month internship when I first got here, I spent a very painful year searching for jobs. So I know how difficult that can be and how stressful it can be. And I think the things that I learned the most are it's very important to be present, to be in the city you want to be in. So if you're here, congratulations, you've checked that box. And also the ability to, as it becomes more appropriate, to go out and meet people for coffee. Ask those people that you're interested in if they can connect you with someone else, and don't just let the trail end if you there, because it's as Jay said, it's about maximizing your contacts. And so the more people that you can expand your network to, the better. And as far as trying to find jobs, I would say that 2 of the really good resources I would rely on were Tom Minatos and Brad Traverse websites, where they'll list out all sorts of jobs in public, private, think tank land. And so it makes it a little easier on you that you're not having to visit a website or multiple websites all the time, and you can go there and you can save them and you come back to them. And I also note that while Kat gets an award for getting a job through USA Jobs, because that's not an easy feat, I've learned how to play those tricks. And so if people are interested, I'm happy to share my tips on how to navigate that offline at some point.
Definitely. Good point to bring up. I've definitely heard some horror stories of people spending months or years applying for government jobs. So again, there definitely is a way to write your resume. So just a quick explanation. When you put your resume through, it has to go through this like machine, this algorithm that's trying to catch certain words. So you definitely want to say certain words, but you also want to word things in a specific way for the person who then at the next level, which is HR, receives it. Always remember that HR, that person, doesn't necessarily know what you've done in your, abilities. So definitely pimp yourself out on your resume, like sell yourself. Don't cut yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. And then once HR grabs it, they send it off to a panel, and those people need to see. It needs to jump out. None of those, I'm responsible for answering a phone. So what? Like, you might have not actually picked up the phone, or did you answer 10 lines, or did you? There's so many things you could talk about to really sell yourself and really demonstrate your ability to perform a job. So there are definitely tips and tricks to getting through. Elizabeth?
I think as well, just to kind of build on the tips and tricks, as well as the point Katherine was making about networking, is so important, especially if you want to do nonprofit, really for anything in DC. But having those relationships, I received a great piece of advice from someone who's been in the industry for a long while that I was looking to get further into, about it doesn't matter necessarily how big your web is, but how strong those connections are. So it's great if there are 50 people on your LinkedIn who you want to reach out to and have connections with, but how strong are those connections? Is that someone that you could call up and ask advice from? Build out that cohort, and then that cohort can connect you to other cohorts. And I think that's a really great piece of advice that I'm working on, starting out in my career, and think is really useful to keep in mind when it doesn't matter if you have 500 connections on LinkedIn, how many of those people would you actually be able to reach out to and grab coffee or, have a further conversation with?
Good point. Definitely great to, speak to those people in those positions that you're interested in. See if there's any mentors. There are people who are dedicated to being mentors and helping people out, and they're more than happy to meet for coffee or help you with a resume or send you in a great direction. Ray?
Yeah, I think the one thing I can add here, definitely hammer everything that everyone else has said. That's key. So I ended up getting this job through a lot of my data work and my UConn research. And if that is a route that you're interested in, definitely showcase it somewhere. So I had a GitHub repository I was working on while at UConn, and I pushed that out to folks when I was looking for jobs here, just to say, here's some of my work, here's stuff I've been doing, take a look at it. Does this seem like something you like? Is this something that fits your mold? And if you can, always try to tailor it. So if you're applying for jobs that, for transportation wise, push that to the front or the top of the blog post or the top of your site. Because that stuff really, it just solidifies you in their mind and associates you with some sort of product that may or may not be useful for their tool, their task, or their team.
Sorry about that, starting to set over here, that sun. All right. Ray, did I miss you or did you go first? I'm sorry.
I think you got me.
I went first.
Jay, excuse me. The other part of the bromance.
Yeah.
You're good? Okay, cool.
Hey, Kat, I actually have one other thing that I wanted to mention if you got a second. For those of you who are recent graduate school graduates, another great opportunity to get into the public sector and avoid the USA jobs hurdle, but take on another hurdle of selection is the Presidential Management Fellowship, the PMF program, which is essentially a fast track way into the executive branch. And we can send along information about that, but it's a program that a lot of my friends have done. I've made it through the interviews. I ended up not taking a job with it, but it's another way that you can access the public sector at a time when it's become more challenging to get new and young talent into the government agency. So happy to provide more details on that offline as well.
Great, thank you. And I hate to push the government out so much that it gets my experience, but also during this uncertain time of COVID and everything, they are still very aggressively hiring at many agencies. At the State Department, at DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, which I've had experience with. Wow, they're still bringing people in. I mean, just today, I think I got like 2 or 3 job assignments just through USA Jobs, which you can tailor to, send you announcements that are catered to what you're looking for. Or even within agencies. I mean, again, networking, you never know. Someone at another location, whether it's contracting or government, can tell you like, hey, yeah, we got a couple spots. It definitely helps. And they can help you with the interview process, because that's definitely another important portion. You may be a killer at interviews for other positions, but government or contracting or a different little other animal that the interesting questions. I just had an interview where they asked me, how do you change a tire? And they really just want to see, how you react, how you act, what you say. But honestly, I just said, I just call it AAA. But then I said, but if I have to, humor you, I went through what I thought it would be because I've never done it my entire life. So, all right, guys. Apartment hunting tips. Ray?
I think, for this one, when I got my job down here in 2018, it was kind of short notice. I was working in Hartford actually at the time. And I wanted to start within a month. And so it was pretty quick turnaround, bang, bang. The big thing for me was just a second set of eyes. So my mom kind of took this on. She loves House Hunters, those kind of shows. So she took this on as a personal challenge. And
I mean, whose mom doesn't?
Yeah, and so that's a big piece. It really helped with my own searching, and then I just kind of pointed her in a direction. I was thinking, I currently live in Arlington, right across the river, so I pointed her in that specific locale, and she kind of went to town. And so, you know, I did a lot of virtual touring, which is probably going to be something if you're looking to move here down currently, that you'll probably be doing before you come down. And I want to say from that front, it was very nice. Most of the realtors were very great. I FaceTimed through my current apartment with the realtor at the time, and I had done a bunch of those prior to that as well. So definitely try to get a teammate to help you out, second set of eyes, because you know you can't look at everything. Your eyes will start bleeding if you look at apartments for so long. So it's nice to get a second opinion, a second set of eyes, and just someone else that's always ready to go, like sending you stuff. Hey, here, check this out. Hey, here, check this out.
Jay?
So I want to start this off as a former Virginian. There's nothing wrong with living in Virginia. I once was at a happy hour and someone said, "I don't believe in Virginia," which like befuddled me. So there's
a lot of hate. Right.
There you go. Thanks to folks like Ray. There's lovely public transportation that gets you into and out of the city. I actually just bought my home. And so I know I'm in a bit of a unique situation, but what my mentality was, okay, finally, you know, getting that adult paycheck. And so what I want to do, I'm going to, you know, I don't necessarily have to go and get something in Chinatown, those new buildings, or Noma or whatever, but I'm going to, you know, live conservatively, live out in Virginia. I was able to get my employer to cover transportation, so metro/parking, and everybody should ask for that when they're kind of moving down. And I was able to save up and eventually buy a small apartment, which, you know, eventually, if you get a mortgage, the payments are a lot lower than DC rent, and that's a whole thing. So happy to talk to anybody who's interested in buying. But yeah, be conservative. Don't go and get one of those ultra plush places where you have to have like 12 roommates to like afford a studio apartment. Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself.
I mean, unless you're going to start an incubator.
In-unit laundry. That's where it's at.
Cool. Katherine?
I think my piece of advice here would be the pricing fluctuates wildly depending on what time of year it is. When intern season begins, starting in probably May and June, the prices on rents can go up anywhere from $100 to $300-400 a month. And then they'll start to taper off again in September. So if you have flexibility on when you can move or when you're interested in moving, I definitely recommend the October through April timeframe because you'll get a much better deal.
Thanks for that. Elizabeth?
So I'm anti-Virginia, and I'm going to apologize. My reason for being anti-Virginia is the Metro bus.
The shame.
Bane of my existence, I know. So I had a lot of night events for work, and Metro bus doesn't run after 10 on weekdays. So the Metro itself does. So you would get out to your Metro stop, and then there would be no Metro buses, and you would cry a little bit to yourself, and then, you know, process buying a Lyft and get over it. But that was a little bit of a nuisance for me, especially because, you know, pre-COVID times had a lot of evening events. And I since moved into the city, which is really nice to not be on Metro bus. As well as on the weekends, the schedule fluctuates. So if you're someone who likes to go into the city a lot, again, like I was saying earlier, I'm really into spin classes. It would take me about 2 hours, anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours to get into the city, when it would take me about 30 minutes on the weekday, just because of the bus schedule. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Virginia is gorgeous. I love Old Town more than anything, but it is very inconvenient if all of your friends and all of your life is in the city. Just as a comment. But I do like Virginia.
Virginia, like they say, is for lovers, and they don't mean like intimate relationships. They mean lovers of many things.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely agree. When I worked down at the State Department, which is like at the end of DC near Virginia and the water there, people who lived literally like right over Virginia took longer than when I lived near Annapolis, which is like no traffic, 40 minutes. So definitely understand that. So speaking of which, the suburbs, not just Virginia, there's good old, you know, we have great things like Old Bay and crabs and Olympians and the Ravens. So lots of unique. I'm sorry, are you talking shit? Okay. So anyways, yeah, lots of great stuff. I live in a small little town, like literally triangulated between DC, Baltimore, and Annapolis. Lots of great things to do. For instance, like one of the top, sorry, my dog, one of the top bars in the country is in Baltimore. They actually hand painted the Sistine Chapel on the top of the bar. But it's not a shishi bar. You could actually get like a shot and a beer for like $5. So it's really cool. It's near Micah. For all of you, it's the art school there in Baltimore. So Baltimore is very eclectic. Lots of great neighborhoods. You can go and pub crawl really easily. A lot of history, obviously. Annapolis, if you're into boating. Gosh, sorry, my dog. If you're into boating or, you know, just wearing boat shoes and walking around, that's your place for sure. And just lots of great areas, even outside DC, Bethesda, and Rockville have a lot of just really modern, very metropolitan types of places. Really great. So lots of choices. Speaking of which, what are your best methods of transportation in your city? I would say being 40 minutes out from like downtown DC, gosh, now of course it escapes me, but Jay and Ray, help me. There are certain agencies that will actually give you a stipend or pay for you to get transportation in. So I drove to the nearest park and ride, took a nap for an hour, and then appeared in front of the building, and that was all free and stress-free from traffic. Jay, would you like to touch upon that?
Sure, yeah. So Booz Allen Hamilton covers, at least for me, public transportation. I have made a pledge to minimize all driving within DC. I do have a car, but that's just because we like to vacation out in Virginia and go out and check out Virginia. And so my actual like new like thing are the Capital Bike Share. I mean, I know I'm probably behind the 8 ball there, but absolutely love biking. It takes, I live in Calorama, so I get from Calorama to like the eastern part of town in like 30 minutes, which for me is great. I mean, with traffic, it probably takes about that much time anyway. I do try and avoid the scooters like the plague. Sorry, Ray. Uber, Lyft, the whole thing. So yeah, I try to lean on my car the least, but definitely bike is definitely the more nimble and dexterous form of transportation in DC.
Ray?
Lean in here and second that. Love the Capital Bike Share, one of the best things. It's actually fully integrated with Lyft now, so you don't even have to download a new app. If you have Lyft, you can book your Capital Bike Share through that directly, plus their scooters. As a transportation kind of nut myself, I live 2 blocks away from the Pentagon City Metro station, so that's how I get around. I get to work. Noblis covers our public transit, our Metro card, so you know I have the monthly pass, so I ride Metro unlimited under a certain value. That's the way they do it here in DC. So that includes Metro Bus, the actual Metro itself, and some of the regional ones too. So over here in Arlington, we have ART, which is the Arlington Regional Transit. We have a bus rapid transit system that can take you right here from Pentagon City down to Old Town. So there's a bunch of different, and one of the reasons like I said before, love DC is there's just so many options. So, you know, I love the multimodality of things, taking a bike into the city and then taking a Metro home, or biking in the morning before work, showering at our little downtown kind of office shower area, then finishing my trip on Metro. One thing I do want to note is a lot of times when you do move into the city, even if you do find your apartment and everything, you have to pay more for your car. So sometimes that can be quite expensive if you're trying to live in the city.
Sure.
And like Jay said, sometimes, you know, driving won't even beat taking the bike or taking the Metro. So if that's something, whether for, you know, sustainability preferences or just time saving, transit is great. And you do sometimes run into some issues. I know Elizabeth noted that the schedules will change a lot, and that will leave you out. I've been stuck over at the Roslyn station when the Metro has totally frozen before, and I had to, all 10,000 of us try to take an Uber at once. It does get crazy, but in terms of covering the city and getting around, awesome. You can pretty much go anywhere you want to go.
That's true. There's unpredictability with the Metro. I mean, I've really rarely used it, but definitely hot days, any kind of weather, inclement weather, someone decides to end their life. There's always something exciting going on with the Metro. So definitely don't cry. But one thing that I would say for the ladies, because I know ladies think about this, I've ridden the Metro even at night and I didn't have a problem. No one came up to me. I felt safe. It was very clean. So, you know, for anyone that even not ladies that feel men that feel that they might be unsafe or you know, not clean, definitely take it from us. It's a pretty good system. Guys like Ray are helping it keep safe and clean.
Yep, I'm an advocate.
Thank you. Ladies, would you like to add something?
Let Katherine go first.
Okay. I think just one app that I found within the last year that has changed my life when I was still using WMATA pre-COVID was, I think it's just called the WMATA Metro and Bus app, and it will tell you in live time when buses and the Metro is coming, so you don't have to stand out there for 20 minutes wondering if it's going to come in the next 5 minutes or right after you give up and walk away. So that was definitely a life-changing discovery. But since COVID, I bought a bike, and I'd say DC is getting better about bike lanes. It's not amazing, but Google Maps has also gotten better about showing how to route you on bike paths too. So I cheat a little bit and rely on them for some help.
Cool. When you get a chance, do you mind putting that link on our chat just for anyone else?
Yeah, let me see if I can figure it out.
Cool. Elizabeth?
I also very much support the app as someone who waited for the bus a lot. It was nice to be able to wait in the lobby as opposed to outside when it was cold and the wind was whipping and you just, you know, don't want to be out there. The app is brilliant, and it's not like the UConn bus app where the bus never shows up. Like, the bus will show up. You know, it's okay. It will be there. I usually take Metro. I think the pass is one of the most brilliant things as well. And even I work for a nonprofit and my transportation is subsidized or tax sheltered. So if you don't work for a big corporation, I would check, or you don't work for the federal government, I would check with your organization that you're working for or whatever group it is. There probably is something that you can do to get your transportation a little bit less, but the pass is amazing. And you save hundreds and hundreds of dollars with it. So those are the app actually works, and get the monthly pass.
Good ideas. Another thing that came up to mind just now was you could actually add it as part of the negotiation for your pay, your salary. I've known people that have said, hey, that's going to cost me an extra $1,200, you know, the year. Can you just slap that on? And they're just like, sure. So, you know, it might be something to look into or consider. Okay, so favorite things to do, activities in your area, best restaurant. So maybe let's start with Jay, and you can tell us like what, you know, which area you're in, you know, what your favorite things to do are, and maybe just like some other place in DC.
Sure. So I live in Kalorama, which is just west of Adams Morgan. Man, I was woefully unprepared for this question. Favorite place to eat is this, I don't know where it is, so you're gonna have to forgive me. It's this restaurant called Tip Cow. Has anybody been there?
Yeah.
Elizabeth, do you know where it is by any chance?
No clue.
Oh man, it is bee's knees. I will tell you, it is delicious, noisy, smells terrible, but the food is out of this world. So that's food. And then for something to do, I will tell you, there is nothing better than hopping on one of those bikes and like just riding around town and just getting into all kinds of malarkey. It's just such a good time. So, oh, I think you're on mute, Kat.
I love the usage of malarkey as well. Appreciate it.
Sign of the times. Sign of the times.
Nice little clue there, a little Easter egg. Elizabeth?
My favorite thing is to walk at the monuments at night, which is very tacky tourist, but there is nothing, I'll get emotional thinking about it, like looking at Lincoln Monument at night and it's all lit up and it's just beautiful. Same with the Capitol. All of the buildings are just stunning. So that's probably my favorite thing to do at night. And then my all-time favorite restaurant, yes, Patrick, you cannot beat it. My all-time favorite restaurant, and it's like it's very basic, but I think it's the best food, and I just love the speaker series, is Best Boys and Poets on 14th. Just incredible food, incredible people, great happy hour. great speaker series. The one at Anacostia also has incredible speakers. You won't go to a bad place with busboys, and it's local DC, great place. My definite favorite.
And the food. Woo,
Oh,
very good.
and there's not one bad thing on the menu. Like, I have gotten probably 85 different things on the menu, and each thing is more brilliant than the next. So, highly recommend.
Very good review. In your face, Patrick. All right, now, Katherine.
I'd say I was trying to think of things that people could do right now while it's still slightly warm out. And the two things that came to mind were Union Market over in Northeast behind Union Station. It's been around for a while, but it's gained a lot of popularity, and it's all sorts of different little pop-up stores, including restaurants, just little food carts, and other stores. And then right next to it, they've also opened a Latin market, which is basically right across the street from it. So it's a great place to go if you're not too picky, and you can try all sorts of different food. Like I last time I went, I had Egyptian street food, which is not something you're going to find on every corner. And then another like fun activity that you could consider trying in the times of COVID is the water taxi. It takes you from like from Georgetown to the Southwest Waterfront Wharf area. It can take you to Alexandria, to the casino across the way in Maryland at the convention center. So you can stay out up top and not have to worry about exposure. So get out and do that before it gets too cold.
So I will say, because actually I went to New York this past weekend, that in this area, there is 50% inside dining, and there's outside when the weather permits. So I know in New York, there's still not indoor dining for those people who are in states right now where you can't do indoor dining. That is permitted now here, and it's, God willing, going to continue and then go into full. Elizabeth, did I ask you already?
I think
You've already asked me, but I can
my bad.
further, but I will defer to Ray on that.
What a lady.
You know, keeping it classy.
I heard a lot of Virginia slander, so I think I have to come to bat here. Arlington in general, very fun. Most of the spots to go out, recent grads, the Clarendon Strip, Wilson Boulevard over there's plenty of spots. Take Metro and have yourself a night. There's a lot of fun places. In terms of food, there's actually a spot I really love over there. It's a Balkan tapas place called Ambar in Capitol Hill as well.
Is that where you took Ray for your anniversary?
That's exactly where we went for our anniversary.
We did go there. Delicious. Very cool. Overall vibe. They kind of bring out a bunch of small plates of stuff that you wouldn't normally try. So that's a cool spot to kind of get out and get into. Over closer to me on this side of the river too, that's still technically DC. There's Teddy Roosevelt Island, which is really cool. It's a monument most folks you can only get to from Virginia side. There's a walking bridge, and there's a whole monument out there to Theodore Roosevelt, a whole set of walking trails. That's really one of my favorite spots in DC because you can kind of go and get away. And it's quiet. You do have to deal with the national airport planes flying overhead. So it's not peaceful, but it's quieter than the city itself. And just to build on that too, Rock Creek Park is one of my favorites. Jay's neck of the woods up northwest, very awesome. You can hike it all the way from Maryland down to Georgetown if you're feeling so inclined, and you get to walk past the National Zoo. Just very fun. A lot of fun stuff in there.
Right. Speaking of the zoo, there's lots of free stuff. When the museums all open back up, they're free. Most of them, the Smithsonian's. I think there's 3 open right now. For myself, I don't know that. Well, actually, in DC, my favorite restaurant would be Founding Farmers, which probably sounds kind of basic, but it's so good. Like, they just make everything fresh. Everything's, farm to table. And I love personally that they are open for Thanksgiving, and they're, it's already set up. So yeah, I don't go home. Some people just don't need all that. Like, there's just this freedom to have Thanksgiving in a restaurant where you have all the drinks you want and nobody judges you. And they're happy to bring you more, right? And then you can have like extra dessert, take it home, and no one's gonna tell you you're fat. So it's amazing, you know? So if you don't make it home, or if you move down here and it's too much to schlep back home for Thanksgiving, you know, that's an option. Lots of open restaurants during Thanksgiving. Up here in Baltimore, I mean, seafood is big up here. So there is a place called Bertha's Mussels, and they just have like 20 different ways to do mussels. The place itself is like 200 years old, so very interesting. That's in Fells Point, which is all cobblestone and great bar hopping, as I mentioned. All right, so moving on. Sorry, I lost track. We have a couple minutes left, so just a quick elevator pitch, everyone, in closing. If there's a tip or a piece of advice that you wish you knew before moving down here, like what can you tell these people who are considering moving down here? Jay?
Sure. I'm gonna be uncharacteristically uncouth here and say that all the rules and limitations are all bullshit, right? And so whatever you set your mind to, I must have applied to the job that I'm in now 1,000 times over 10 years, no joke. I must have applied literally 1,000 times, and they said no, they said no, they said no. And do not get discouraged. The DC job search sucks more than anything. But I think it's a numbers game, right? Eventually, at some point, even if you're 1 in a million, or in my case, 1 in 1,000, at least that you get that 1 out of 1,000, then you can build and you can leverage your experience. And I also think the thing I would also advise is to not limit the opportunities and kind of close yourself off and pigeonhole yourself into something, because I was a guy who studied political science and public policy on the municipal level. And then now I'm doing national, international law enforcement, military, and that kind of consulting. And the reason I was able to get here is because, yeah, I was the youngest guy in the room in the analyst, and by 20 years, and they said, oh, you know how to turn on a computer, so we're going to give you the tech portfolio. And then, you know, they gave me an $80 million tech portfolio, and then it's okay, well, there was at that point in time, there was an opportunity to work very closely with the Department of Homeland Security. So then it's okay, well, hey, now we're going to apply IT to Homeland Security. And before you know it, you develop these skills and you develop these relationships, these expertise, where if at any point in time I said no, it was either that or there was going to be someone else who's going to do that job. And so for me, it's if you really want something, set your mind to it and do it. And then don't be afraid to go and step out in your comfort zone and try new things.
Right. I mean, that could actually give you those extra abilities and experiences that then build onto that job that you've applied to 1,000 times, or you eventually break them down as you did, Jay.
I
How about Ray?
yeah.
I think I'm not as deep as Jay's, but I think just get out and enjoy the city. It's a city that's fun to be slow in. Everyone's moving fast. Just go see stuff. I mean, take a walk, sit down at the park, maybe talk to someone you don't. It's not as, us coming from Connecticut, most of us, it's not as rigid as New York, where, you wouldn't even look someone else in the eye on the street, but it's not as friendly as like a southern city. So it's that happy medium, and, get lost and find yourself doing different stuff, and, check out different parks. There's plenty of nice green spaces like that, bike around, just take the slower route. And I think there's a lot of things to see here.
Thanks, Ray. Katherine?
I would say particularly for the younger alumni on the call, you shouldn't be discouraged about coming to DC, although it can be an expensive city with rent. I think if you start networking and signing up for different events, you can eat free in this city for almost any meal. And you should really take advantage of that, because when I was an unpaid intern and then a very poorly paid Hill staffer, any little free drinks and snacks will go a long way to helping you pay off your student loans and all the other things that might be piling up. So just know that it's possible, and particularly now that we're all super connected over the alumni networks and different email distribution lists, it's only becoming easier to find those opportunities.
Great. Elizabeth?
a lot of mini quiches have been devoured at those happy hours, so very much in line with that thinking. I think, you know, the most important thing I've kept in mind is there is no one path to get to where you want to go. And again, like unnecessarily poetic in that statement, not even all that poetic, it's just at the end of the day. But everyone's going to do their own thing differently. So what are you going to do that makes you the happiest? There's a bunch of different jobs that you could take. There's a bunch of different ways you can go. What makes the most sense for you and what opportunities are in front of you in that moment that make the most sense. And then just go for it. Everyone's going to get to, you know, whatever the position is they want to get to. It's just what way makes the most sense for you.
Cool. I personally would say my little tip would be the area is very transient. It's definitely a change from being up at UConn stores. I don't know if you're originally from Connecticut or were there for 4 or 5, 6 years or whatever, but it's going to be a change. So be very flexible. People here are, I feel, kind of untrusting because a lot of them do work for government. So they're like, are you a spy? You know, why are you trying to be my friend? So it could be a little bit tough, but I would say, you know, take it a step at a time. Always keep those connections like Ray and Jay. You know, reach out to your friends and family back at home. And especially in a time like this where it can get kind of lonely. Unfortunately, we're not going to have events for a minute here with the Alumni Association. Hopefully we can do more of these Zoom calls, maybe have some happy hours or some fun events in the interim. But definitely take it a step at a time. It does take time, and joining groups like these or other groups as suggested, really branching out and doing things that maybe, you know, you wouldn't usually do. You'll find somebody else, or, you know, you'll make those networking connections you just never know. All right, so I guess we're getting here to the end. Would anyone like to add anything before we close here? That's a no.
Yes.
I'm actually pretty proud of us. We made it under, you know, the hour here. Lauren, I don't know if Lauren's still